Are you curious about the latest market trends in the Wright County area and what really happens at a closing? Today, we're breaking it all down. I have Molly Zimmerman back from Bell Bank Mortgage to discuss that final and most exciting step of the transaction, which is your closing day. Let's begin by looking at the data. We're going to try to keep this under 1 minute. My private clients always want to know these two most important things, and so we will cover them today. One, if I'm going to sell my house right now, is the value of my property going up or down? And two, if I were to sell my house today, how long would it take? We will use Wright County and compare it to Hennepin County so we have some idea of what these numbers mean. The median price in Wright County for all properties is $385,000. That's 1% up over this time last year. In Hennepin County, it's $380,000, which is 2.3% higher than it was this time last year. It's important to know no matter where you are in the Twin Cities, we are technically in a buyer's market, which means that buyers are getting more concessions, maybe more of a reduced price. This will probably change after the Christmas season in January. However, there's a lot of opportunities right now for buyers. If you're wondering how long it would take, in Wright County, it's taking about 54 days to sell a property, which is 12.5% times longer than this time last year. In terms of Hennepin County, it's taking 44 days to sell a property, which is 7.3% longer than this time last year. So if you have questions about your particular street, your neighborhood, your house, please don't hesitate to reach out to get further details about your particular area.
So closing is essentially the day that you've got the buyer signing off on all the documents and going into title. So I mean, a closing is the end of the transaction and the day that you sign your papers and you take possession of a property.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the part that and I don't know if you hear this as much as a loan officer, but I think like people don't understand how important the day is, because I think we get so excited when we write the purchase agreement and we're like, I got the house. Okay, not officially. So this is the official true day. You get your keys. That the actual closing itself is not very exciting if we're being honest, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it is the day, like legally, the house is yours. So piggybacking off of that, who attends it? Well, it has changed quite a bit since COVID. So if you haven't done this since 2020, can't speak 2020, we will just kind of give you a quick update. Back in the day, and there's still big conference tables at closing companies, but I don't think they use them like they used to, because we'd have the buyer and the seller and two real estate agents, assuming both people had representation, and most of the time, two different closing companies or title companies. These days, there's a pre-signing for the seller, and then the buyer goes to the title, typically a title company. I suppose there's exceptions, like I've closed in people's houses before, but generally a title company. And there's no meeting each other anymore. I haven't done a closing since pre-2020 where everybody was at the table. What about you, Molly?
I've had a couple of situations where it's been just a for sale, like by owners, so you've just got buyer seller, and those ones have been together, but otherwise it has been completely separated.
So how do you like it, or do you miss the old days?
I think I like it in terms of, I feel like for a buyer, it's less overwhelming, especially a first time home buyer, because I felt like when everybody is in the same room, sometimes it can be awkward. You've got two different title closers talking to, their parties, and it's just a lot of chatter. And I feel like you feel like maybe it's a little bit more personal, and you're not worried about your information, like, I don't know, being disclosed to the other side. It's just, it's a more calm closing, I would say.
If you didn't go to a closing pre-2020, you missed out on the awkwardness of like, there's this like moment where the title person gets up and like makes photocopies and like checks on things. And that can be up to an hour long, not normally, but it can be that long or longer. And then there was this like time where everybody's sitting at this table and essentially everybody's strangers except for the two real estate agents. And now there's like this idle chat, which would normally be like just mindlessly talking about the house. Oh, you should know, the door downstairs is sticky. And it's like, I don't miss it, Molly. I would much rather have small talk with my clients than sit with other strangers. And I think there was value to it at times, but overall, I think it was super awkward. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me. They're like, I liked it. I'm like, nah, I'm
You know,
good.
I'm agreeing. I think it's just better this way,
Yeah.
to have it. So yeah.
All right. So that will lead us to obviously when you have an actual closing, you're going to get this information from your title and your lender, but we'll just kind of give them the foresight of like, what do people normally bring to a closing?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is photo identification cannot be expired. I think we have to stress that because you cannot bring in an expired driver's license. It will not be accepted. So
Oh,
make sure you do your renewals, bring a passport. It's got to be an unexpired government ID. And then, of course, most importantly, the funds. You need to bring the money to actually complete the transaction, which in the majority of cases is going to be a certified cashier's check. So you have to go to your bank, you have to get a certified check payable to the title company for what you need to bring to closing. Those are the most important things.
so I would say the most common mistakes see people make, I don't know if it's because they're nervous or they're not like reading their emails very closely, but I would say not very commonly, but every once in a while I see somebody show up with no money, or it's because there was a misperception of what's happening. And I think it's like not understanding a title company is not a bank, and it's certainly not your bank. And so the next time whoever's listening to us talk about this, you got to ask questions. Do not show up on your closing day with nothing in hand. And like, not long ago had somebody go, like, I thought we could do that here. It's like, I think there's a misperception of like what a title company provides in terms of services. So ask questions. Please ask questions if you don't understand what to bring on your closing date. Not that like I don't want to be like all scary, because the worst thing is you get up and you go to the bank and you go get the money, but I don't know about you, Molly, but I won't name the bank, but there was like one bank I remember closing like where like they were closed and it was going to take 24 hours to, like move money and stuff. I mean, it could be a real storm of a situation if you're not. I'm also thinking like some people wait too long. I think like they'll wait the day of when maybe they should have done it the night before. I don't know, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you're going to get, or you should get, a closing notice email from your title company. You got to read that because I feel like that's probably one of the most unread emails throughout the transaction. Like people overlook it for some reason, but it very specifically tells you what to bring to closing, bring the certified check, how to make that check payable. And another big thing is if you decide to wire money, which you can, you have got to double check those wiring instructions directly with the institution by phone. Do not accept it by email because wire fraud is a major problem. And we obviously don't want you to get your money taken. So
Yeah, so those are all really great points. So we'll finish it up with what happens at the closing. Just because I've noticed, especially again, my first time home buyers, they want to like, it's like if you don't have you've never done this before, you might be like wondering, well, like what's actually going to happen at that appointment? So Molly, I'll let you answer that question.
yeah, and I feel like the process of closing has gotten a lot more streamlined. Most lenders are doing some sort of a hybrid closing, which includes us, where the buyers actually get the majority of the documents that they can e-sign before the actual closing day. But closing day, we still have to come together. There are certain documents like, the mortgage, the note, the recordable documents that you have to sign in front of that notary. So you're basically just signing a handful of documents along with anything the title company might need you to sign on their behalf. And once everything is signed and notarized, your title person is going to take your money, get copies of, get you copies of all of the documents you've just signed. And then typically you're handed the keys. So I feel like the process, like what actually happens, it's a lot faster process than it used to be. A lot of buyers are now like, wow, that was really fast. I just had to sign a few pieces of paper and I got my keys and I handed over my money.
Yeah, I think the thing is we're generally not bringing up a lot of new information at the closing. Like it's either repetitive. The title company will talk to you about scams. They'll talk to you about like how to homestead your property. And if you don't know what that means, you don't need to know what it means until you buy a house anyway. But generally, like everything you're signing on closing day, like, you know how we're like always told to read everything before we sign it. And I'm not saying that that's not true, but your loan officer has reviewed your loan documents with you. Your purchase agreement was filled out probably 30, 45, 60 days ago. So you're not like renegotiating with the seller. So I've definitely heard stories about people who sit down and want to read it word for word. And you can, no one's going to stop you. That's your right. But like, again, it's not really new. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Molly. Like that's my impression is that it's not, it's just you're agreeing to switch the title and deed from one person to another person. And this is what makes it official. And a lot of times that packet you're leaving with is mostly loan documents.
Correct. And I think the thing to keep in mind is at that point, like everything you're signing is a legal document that has been prepared. I mean, it's usually a state document where we're literally just filling in the details of your transaction. So by all means, you're right to read everything through, but you cannot change anything because it is a state legal document. So we've had people show up with, you know, attorneys trying to strike things out. It's like, no, that we're not going to accept that, unfortunately. So
that's actually for me the most interesting part of this conversation, because I've always wondered like what would happen. I've never had a client like want to contend any of the information in there. I've heard stories of like people who are attorney, not my clients, but like an attorney that's like, I'm going to read through this and now we're going to renegotiate it. You know, I guess like the short version is if you have a problem with your loan product or the process, I think you certainly want to be talking about that way before your closing day. That's just my 2 cents. Like it's not going to be productive. Again, you're just slowing everything down. I don't know. I don't want to be condescending or rude or anything like that, but I guess I would do it earlier. So, yeah. And I know this information isn't pertinent until you're ready to purchase a house. Like maybe, you know, it's a little bit forward thinking of us to like share this information with everybody, but we definitely hope somebody, you know, found this useful. And I think the big thing is that, sorry, I'm going to pause there because I was going to say something and then it like went in and out of my head. Oh, the biggest thing to take away from our video is that I think it used to take like an hour or two to close on a house. And I would say generally we're in and out in 15 to 30 minutes if everybody's on time and you know, there's no like major gotchas in the final walkthrough. Again, a lot of loan officers are doing some e-signing. So most of it's signed before we even get to the closing table. So it's nothing to be nervous or concerned about. You just show up, they give you a pen, you rock and roll, and you're out with the keys and you bought a house. So
yeah, it's easy.
It is easy. It's nothing to like really prepare yourself for as long as you're bringing what you need to bring. Well, Molly, thanks for joining me, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. I try to make a new video every Wednesday and upload it to YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I hope you'll join me, subscribe, follow, like, etc. Have a fantastic week.